Kính thưa quý vị, và chúng tôi xin được phép bắt
Welcome
đầu.
back, everyone. We'd like to resume our conference program. Can we have the presidium back on duty to chair the session, please? Ladies and gentlemen, the presentation right before the break by Mr. Duong, he mentioned children with CP and they lack opportunities, so much opportunities to go to school, to get proper education like any other kids. So that linked us to the next presentation. From the speakers are students, representatives from the Rehabilitation Technique class of 2020, occupational therapy. They would talk to us about promoting awareness and understanding about OT and accessibility for children with disabilities or teachers in special schools. So their topic will mention the program that they've done on promoting awareness and understanding about OT with teachers of Duong Thap and Trang province in Vietnam.
Xin kính chào ban chủ tọa, quý khách mời.
Good afternoon, Chairman of the session, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Như. Today, we'd like to introduce to you about our initiative, which is on promoting awareness and understanding about OT in Duong Thap and Trang. And this is a CBR project, which is a specialty of the Department of Rehab. And we'd like to thank the Lawrence S. Ting Community Support Fund for their connection and support. We have 8 OT students under the guidance and supervision of MSc OT Nguyễn Huỳnh Ngọc Mai Trâm. This program was conducted in 2 phases. First phase in March 2023. So phase 1, we have conducted assessment in 2 locations, discussed with the leadership of the schools in those provinces. We were in residence at the schools. We make observations and assessments of the classes there. We collect information and also do assessments about any problems, identify any common problems seen in children there. And in order to collect information, we built a survey, and then we also have a questionnaire to interview teachers in those classes with children that took in children with disabilities. At the end of phase 1, the survey results are as follow. The average class size is more than 10 students. The diversity of age group in each class range from 6 to 16 years old, and they have different conditions, but teachers, the teaching method is pretty much passive, one way, and lack of activities to initiate and maintain the class. In Trang, the same thing happened. Teachers want to enhance the concentration of children, and teachers actually struggle to handle children with difficult behaviors, children with difficulties managing their emotions or prone to tantrums. After we've done observation in 6 classes in Trang, we realized there are 4 very popular problems in children with CP, children with on the spectrum of autism, attention deficit, hyperactivity disorder, and sensory processing disorder. Some children have difficulties in balance, in holding a pen, and other physical problems. The second group of children, we realized there are problems with the ability to concentrate. In Đồng Tháp, after observing the classroom and interviewing the homeroom teacher, we realized that there are 20% of the children with sensory disorder, and both groups have problems with attention deficit, and some of the children have problems with their emotional regulation. Second phase happened in May 2023, and based on the results of phase 1, we identified the goals, as you can see on the slide. And from those objectives, what have we done in Sóc Trăng? So as you can see on the slide, these are our students from our class, and they participated in the classroom, and we also demonstrate some activities to transfer that to the teachers there. We have a little video clip to show you of what we did in these classrooms. Outdoor games.
Thì đó là các hoạt động trong lớp và các hoạt động.
Those are some examples of the activities we demonstrated there. Indoor activities aim to initiate their interest in learning, and it helps them also to reinforce, to review their knowledge. Outdoor activities give space and opportunities for interaction, for teamwork, and also encourage them to integrate into the community. These are some photos of intervention that we did with this kid at school. So he has some behavioral problems, attention deficit, and he wasn't keen with social interactions at all. He doesn't want to play with any friends. He wasn't even playing with his own baby sister. So we try to create a more diverse learning environment for him that would stimulate all of his senses. We bring in play during learning, so to keep him excited. And we realized that through play activities, he would enhance his interaction with his friends. And next photos, this is the second child that we gave intervention. He has some symptoms of CP, really bad movements of his hands and feet. So we gave him balance exercises, some of the movement exercises. And here in this photo, he's making beats with his friend, and this will help him enhance the cleverness of his fingers. And through our intervention, these children were very collaborative, and they started to show results. An important milestone in our program was the presentation that we made. So we conducted a seminar where we gave them a full and thorough presentation about understanding, we call it understanding children more, and we aim to provide knowledge, to exchange information and have Q&As with them for them to understand more about the 4 common conditions and what are some of the recommendations, what are some of the interventions they can do. And we gave them a resource, which is a booklet, a book called Understand Your Children More. So it's a whole set of book chapters and selected materials which we think would benefit the school leadership and the teachers. And next, we will share about what we've done in Đồng Tháp. So in Đồng Tháp, we conducted activities as follows.
Thì những hoạt động mọi người vừa
So
coi
those activities you just saw, those are not just games to make them happy, for them to have fun, but those are activities that help them release their energy and which will help them concentrate better in the classes, in the lessons. And through these activities, they get to activate their senses. They get stimulated in different ways, and that will help them remember the lesson, that will help them feel more engaged in learning.
thì với trẻ thứ nhất, trẻ có hành vi.
So in the first child in the video, he was having some behavioral problems. So there was a series of activities which would help him with his very basic activities such as hopping, jumping. And he was also having issues with social interactions. It was so limited for him. He was not keen. So we make some rules which will encourage him to be more proactive in communication. The second child has sensory dysregulation. So we recommended another diet for him, and also some movement activities to activate the senses more, like vestibular activation. And we also ran a seminar with the school, and we call it When the Senses Speak. And we raised awareness. We educated the teachers about sensory processing disorders and how to tell the difference between sensory processing disorders and other behavioral problems. There's some that are behavioral caused and some are sensory related. In addition, with this program, we share knowledge about behavior training models and some activities, some experience that these schools can use to intervene for students who have problems in emotional regulation. We design a poster, very informative, like an infographic, as a manual for them to use to help students with sensory processing disorders or behavioral problems. So that's all about our project, which we conducted in Thap and Trang. Thank you very much for your attention. And I wish for our conference to be a great success, and all the best to OT in Vietnam. Together, we will create and add values to the society here. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Như and Miss Duy, who's now students of OT at UMP. Thank you very much for adding a lot of fun and excitement in your presentation through a lot of videos and photos. And the next speaker will talk about fall prevention in the elders. And she is Miss Hà Thị Lan, senior students, third year student from Hải Dương Technical Medical University.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hà Thị Lan. I'm a student of occupational therapy course. I'm a third year student in Hải Dương Medical Technical University. And with the consensus and the guidance from our faculty, today I'd like to share with you one of our projects regarding prevention of falling in elderly. And this is a project of our team. This project is a community project, and it has been conducted by a group of 6 students with the guidance of Miss Nguyễn Thị Tuyết Ngân. And here are the 5 key parts of my presentation. I'm going to provide you with a general introduction, then I'll talk about the method and results and recommendation from our team. In terms of general introduction, first of all, I'd like to once again review the definition of elderly. So elderly refers to those who are 70 years old or older based on definition of WHO. And in Vietnam, elderly people are defined as Vietnamese citizens from 60 years old or above. And in Vietnam, at this point, we've seen the fluctuation, particularly the rising of elderly people from 2019 to 2030. And it is estimated to increase up to 16.9% by 2030. And in Hải Dương, this percentage is around. In 2018 and 2019, we've seen the increasing of 14.3 to 15.5% of elderly in Hải Dương province. And then what is falling? Falling refers to unintentionally coming to the rest on the rail, floor, or other lower level. And sometimes a body part is attacked, collided, or then fell. And it can be caused by personal factor, environmental factor, or occupational factor. And the next definition I'd like to introduce you briefly again is what is occupational therapy. This is a health science focused on client center and OT focused on supporting clients to be able to participate in their activities. OT plays an important role for fall prevention in elderly. And based on a study conducted and published in 2012, it was mentioned that OT participates in environment modification, providing exercise guidance, and improve the quality of life of the patients. And next, I'd like to share with you the prevalence of falling in elderly in Vietnam and its consequences. In Vietnam, we see the growing populations of older people, and about 1.5 to 1.9 million elderly people have fallen every year, in which 5% patients had to be hospitalized because of their injuries. And in the geriatric palliative care of Ho Chi Minh, of the UMP hospital, we've seen an estimation of 17% of elderly people hospitalized per month due to falls or fall-related. And here are the three key factors that affect the event. And there are some other possible explanations relating to the aging of different systems of the body, like sensory system, neurological system, and musculoskeletal system. The second component, which can increase the potential of falling in elderly people, is their living environment. And the third group of factors is relating to occupational factors. And the third part in my presentation, I'm going to share with you some complications caused by falling. And here's our findings. So in Thái Bình General Hospital, from January 2020 to August 2020, it was estimated that there was about 30.1% of patients admitted due to falling, and among that, home incident accounted for 42.8%. And the consequences of falling to the physical health of elderly people is considered significant, and that affects all aspects of their life. And with that recognition, we have come up with the following methods. And here's the steps we have taken. First of all, we ran a survey. We then developed a plan based on the survey results, and we implement that plan. In terms of occupational implementations, we screen the patients by using different sets of tools and equipments, and then we design the intervention based on the evaluation results. Regarding the participants of our project, we include one of the people, elderly people living in Hải Dương City, around 60 years old or above. And in terms of the equipment or the tools used, here's our set of tools, including the survey. All of the informations were encoded with a QR code, like you can see here in the screen. We used stand up and walk, and then the 4-stage balance test, bird balance scale, and we assess the environment where elderly people were living, and we have encoded all of these data, as you can see here. After assessing all of the factors relating to the environment of the patients, we developed the intervention based on the three key aspects: personal factors, environmental modification, and safe occupation. In terms of personal intervention, we consider education and training to provide patients with more skills. Secondly, we improve their balance to promote their health, and we also encourage MDT model. And we provided instruction for elderly people for falling prevention. We guided them with hand techniques or other types of direct techniques, and we handed the handouts and other poster to them for more information. And here are some of the products. In terms of balance improvement and health enhancement, we instructed patients individually in their home, and here are some of the photos taken during our home visits. We use group activities through play activity and creation activity, depending on hobbies of elderly patients we work with. On the left side of this slide, you are looking at a martial arts sessions in the Duong City Square. And the second photo below the slide is a group exercise sessions. And we recognize the importance of comprehensive care for elderly patients. We have collaborated with other specialists to come up with an optimal intervention plan. And these are the two photos where we joined the sessions with different healthcare teams in a hospital to share with them about occupational therapy in Hải Dương City. In terms of the measures that we apply to prevent falling for elderly patients, one of the factors we consider is more modifications for the environment. And we have considered different aspects in terms of environment, like light, the floor, and the equipment in the house. And in the meantime, we consider that home environment modifications will decide the effectiveness of falling prevention. We provided them with more trainings and more educational sessions to raise the awareness of falling risk. Some elderly people require more support, and with those scenarios, we have discussed with different teams to make the following improvements. First of all, slippery bathroom floor increase risk of falling. And here are the two solutions that we have come up with, like set up the friction mat and then set up more handrail in the bathroom. Many citizens and families have chosen these solutions. In terms of light intensity, if it's not enough, it may cause potential challenges to elderly mobilities. So our recommendation is that more lights should be set up in the corridor or walking hall inside the house, and they may want to use some walker at nighttime. With unfinished constructions like staircase without handrail, we recommend elderly people not to go back and forth much to prevent falling risk. And we have recommended these families to set up the handrails to prevent falling for their family members. So like you can see in this photo, at the base of the stair, there is a friction mat. And we instructed some elderly people to use these friction mats to stick to the places that they frequently travel. And then another example of slippery worship room. Depending on the cultural context of this family, we have recommended them to set up proper mats to create more friction in mobility. And here you see the photo of a beautiful mat. Or in the kitchen, we also recommended the family to use friction mats. And then for the cupboard that is too high for people to reach, we recommended the family to lower down this facility to meet the needs of elderly people. Some family chose to use metal equipment, and some use plastic ones. And then in terms of clothes or motorbikes set up in household environment, if they are messy, they may increase potential risk of falling in elderly populations. The next measure that we apply is to improve occupations, the activities that elderly people are doing. We instructed the family with more information, provide more support and more advice to elderly people like take rest before tired, seeking help when they need to, no climbing, supportive shoes, or mobility aids when they need. In terms of the results after our home visits, this is a comparative set of data before intervention and after intervention. And from these ratio, hopefully you see the changes of our intervention after 3 months. So after 3 months period, the number of incidents reduced from 4 to 0. And then the anxiety of falling also decreased from 8/10 to 3. And the time for time up and go test, like I mentioned before, we've seen the reduction of this ratio and more satisfaction from the participant from 0 to 8/10. And based on the results, here are our recommendations. We need to develop and to disseminate the information about occupational therapy in the community. Secondly, we should collaborate with the local health facilities to increase the awareness of health and falling issues in elderly people. And we celebrate this event on July 27 this year. And finally, we hope that in the near future, we can develop a comprehensive program for falling prevention in elderly population in the province. And I'd like to share with you the final message from my presentation: falling prevention, disability prevention, enhanced longevity and healthy life, long life. And here's a list of reference. Thank you for your attention. Thanks, Ms. Hà Thị Lan from Hải Dương Medical Technical University. So up to now, we have already finished one of the presentation for 2 groups of OT students, and this is also the end of the technical presentations. I'm sure that we are very happy and excited now because we see the achievements from OT students and the graduates, and we're seeing the work and what they achieve in their communities. And these have contributed significantly in their professional growth and development. And now we understand more about OT context in Vietnam through the studies. And now we are going to spend the rest of our time for discussion. And we are pleased to welcome the return of Associate Professor Dr. Ngô Quốc Đạt, Vice Rector of Ho Chi Minh UMP, to join us in the panel discussions.
Thank you, Mr. Phạm Dũng. So we've listened to all of the scientific presentations of the conference, and now is the fun part. Welcome to the discussion. We're open to all of the questions. Any questions, comments from our audience, please? Please raise your hand.
If you have a question for that person. Yeah. I think he understands the structure. I was saying, could you maybe introduce the speakers of the day and then ask the audience if they've got a question? A little structure would help.
Thank you. Và chúng ta có, tôi xin nhắc lại là chúng ta có.
I'd like to remind us about the speakers and the topics we still have in the room here. Ms. Samantha Shan from WFOT, who gave us a presentation on building a globally connected profession for OT. We have Ms. Professor Lynette, and her topic was why OT is one of the greatest ideas for the 21st century. We have Professor Ann Cusick, the topic on occupational therapy in neuro rehabilitation for stroke survivors. We have BSc Nguyễn Phú Sĩ from Bạch Mai Hospital on the OT intervention at the Rehab Center Bạch Mai Hospital. We have a speaker from India. We've heard a lot of experiences and case studies from Professor Shovan Saha. Stories of indigenous splints and adaptive devices, which could give inspiration for OT in Vietnam. MSc OT Nguyễn Khắc Tuấn gave a talk on his research on factors affecting the return to work of blue-collar workers in India after 6 months of hand injury. MSc OT Nguyễn Khắc Tuấn did his training at the Manipal University in India. We have Miss Bình, BSc OT, the topic of cognitive practice for patients with dementia at April 30th Hospital. BSc OT Hồ Lê Trung gave the talk on the results of applying OT for children with autism spectrum, aged 2 to 7 at 1A Hospital. CP children with CP at 1A Hospital. And we have the sharing from 2 students of class of 2020 ROT program here at UMP on the project Occupational Therapy Promoting Awareness and Understanding and Accessibility for Children with Disabilities to Teachers in Sóc Trăng and Đồng Tháp. And the last presentation just now was on fall prevention among elders from our third year OT student Hathy Lan. 10 topics, 10 presentations, and it ranged from the big picture to experience sharing, building awareness in the community, a systematic look at OT and OT application and specific intervention for different kinds of injuries and disabilities. We still have 20 to 30 minutes for a discussion Q&A. Some of our speakers and delegates have to make their travels to pretty far off places, so we're gonna keep it.
Samantha Shan from WFOT. I missed some of your speech, but I saw a little part that was saying the steps and then towards full accreditation. What programs are happening in Vietnam that aren't fully accredited yet? That are, or how is WFOT supporting that? And I'm sorry that I missed the beginning of your speech. Again?
Please repeat again.
So I missed the beginning, but I saw on one of your slides, you were saying these are the steps, and then the final line was towards full WFOT accreditation. So I'm wondering which programs don't have it yet, and how is WFOT supporting them until they've got that?
Okay, thank you for your question. At the moment in Vietnam, none of the occupational therapy programs are WFOT approved. And I will just really stress the word approved. It is a WFOT approval system. Okay, you probably get accreditation from your universities and from the country and Ministry of Education. WFOT is an added step for international recognition, and therefore it's an approval process. So at the moment, none are approved in Vietnam, but we know that at least one, if not two, are working towards that. WFOT will work with any program to help support them to meet those minimum standards. So we don't disclude, but we need the programs to come forward to request that assistance.
Tôi xin có một câu hỏi cho cô Samantha là
I have another question for Ms. Samantha from WFOT. In your presentation, you listed out the resources that contributing and participating and practicing OT. And there's a group called OTAs, OT assistants. Can you elaborate a little more? What are the roles of the position of the person who's qualified as an OTA, and what would be the training journey for that person to be certified as an OTA? I think it would be very important for Vietnam to also develop resources, in this particular position, OTAs, during our early stage of development like this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's probably a very complex answer, so I will try to keep it simple. From a WFOT perspective, an occupational therapy assistant must always work under the supervision and guidance of an occupational therapist. Now, very few, so we've got 107 member organizations. Take the 7 regional groups from that. So from 100 member organizations, only a handful of them have recognized education programs for occupational therapy assistants. So in some countries around the world, there is no formal education, and then occupational therapists may work with rehabilitation assistants to help guide with some of the interventions. In a few countries, so this won't be a conclusive list, but for example, in the United States, in South Africa, in Sweden, and Ghana, they have education programs for assistants, and they are always at a lower level than the education of occupational therapists. So for example, in Ghana, in Africa, where occupational therapists are educated to a BSc level, like here in Vietnam, the occupational therapy assistants are educated to a diploma certificate. And in the country's regulations, those assistants then can only work under the supervision of occupational therapists. They are a very valued member of the rehabilitation team. Yes, we know that there is a huge need in rehabilitation. We know it will take many years to build up the occupational therapy workforce, and assistants can be very valuable in that intervention. But it's really important that if you develop that way in a country, you look at how that actually works within the health system and within the community. So I hope that gives a little bit of an answer.
Xin mời giáo sư phó giáo sư tiến sĩ thầy thuốc nhân Trần Trọng Hải, Chủ tịch Hội Phục hồi chức năng Việt Nam.
Yes, we're gonna have a question from Dr. Trần Trọng Hải, the president of the Rehab Association of Ho Chi Minh City. On behalf of the Rehab Association, I've been very impressed, and I want to thank Dr. Phạm Dũng in person for inviting us to be a part of this conference. I have loved each and every presentation from international and Vietnamese speakers here.
According to WHO, rehabilitation should work in team. Rehabilitation team. Leader is a doctor, and OTPT and other, according to this the indication of physician, of doctor, they have to access their professional understanding and criteria for applying intervention in each patient. That is, we have been in many WHO conference. That is written in WHO guidelines. So what is your opinion about that? Tôi xin lỗi, tôi dịch ra này. Tức là
Let me translate myself into Vietnamese. I want to look at the definition and the recommendation of WHO. Rehab, when you want to give rehab service, it is a teamwork, and that team should be led by an OT. And maybe for rehab services, it should include OT, it should include physio and speech therapy. And based on the doctor's diagnosis or the patient's file, then rehab should be approached, should be delivered and provided to the patient as a teamwork, as a multidisciplinary approach between different experts.
I will answer, but you might not like my answer. So yes, rehabilitation is a multidisciplinary approach, and occupational therapists are an essential part of that multidisciplinary approach. Now, with all due respect, and also with due respect to the World Health Organization, in the past, that may have been medical-led, but it is certainly not the way forward. If we are going to have true rehabilitation teams that are multi-professional, then everyone has to be an equal member of that rehabilitation team. We all come to that team with unique skills, and they must be respected amongst the professions. In many countries, and it is WFOT's opinion that occupational therapy is an autonomous profession. We know that physiotherapy think the same, because World Physio have the same statement that we have about this. We should be working together with the patient and the client. They are the expert, not the OT, not the doctor, not the physio. The patient is the expert. And then how we contribute to that is how we work in a team. So I know that in many countries, this still medical-led. I have huge respect for every PRM. But if we are going to move forward, recognizing that there is a huge shortage of rehabilitation and a huge shortage in the rehabilitation workforce worldwide, we have to look at autonomous professions, respecting quality education, respecting teamwork, and that joint decision-making. And that's where I'll end. So thank you.
I always respect other professionals like PT, OT, SD, because in my 40 years experience in rehabilitation, I'm both doctors and trainers and faculties at medical school. And I join in different groups like Professor Châu, Dr. Phạm Dũng, and many of you here, you have already developed the rehabilitation field in Vietnam. And right at the beginning, when we think about the development of OT, PT programs in Vietnam, especially at national hospital level, at this point, we have 63 provincial or national rehabilitation hospital level, and we have 2 leading hospitals in Bạch Mai Hospital, Professor Khanh team, and Tere Hospital. We have already got the accompanies from all of the colleagues around the country in this journey. And throughout the history of rehabilitation development history, we always include occupational therapy there. It doesn't mean that Vietnam didn't know anything about OT before. We have thought about that before. And when we initiated that effort in CBR program, community-based rehabilitation, we got 63 provinces having CBR model. He's speaking English.
OT, that's the daily activity of life. They have to deal with that. That is OT. The most important for disabled person in Vietnam at the community level, not only profession in the high level. Okay, that is my comment.
Thank you. I think we say very similar pictures. Thank you very much for your support.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Alo, tôi rất là
Hello.
hứng thú khi
I
nghe
am very excited from listening to your presentations, all of what we've heard since the morning. And it seems that there are so many gaps, you know, in the development of OT around the world. Some countries are so advanced, and some are so underdeveloped. So what are the factors? What are some of the key drivers for the growth of OTs in those countries that we should learn from? Should we point out, should we name a few key drivers for the development of OT in the country? Another part of my question is, can we be able, can we here name the key strategic goals of OT globally in the next 10 years? So that, when we work together to develop OT in Vietnam, we are in line with that vision, with those strategic and with those priorities of OT globally. And the third part, I think this is a trend that no sectors, no profession can avoid. AI is everywhere now. AI has integrated into medicine, into rehab. And what about OT? How can we make the best of AI in OT? So I have 3 questions like that. Thank you.
Hello. Okay.
Hello. Thank you. I am going to answer part of your first question. The question was, what factors will help occupational therapy thrive? The first factor is what the president of WFOT spoke about this morning, and that is that we must go forward together, and we must go forward slowly, because then we will go far. If we try to go fast, we will fall. This is the first. What is that factor? It is to have a strategy and a long-term plan. This is the most important thing. When I look at OT in Vietnam, I see that you have a long-term plan. You are very strategic in how you are investing your training resources, your practice resources, and also how you are encouraging the support of rehabilitation doctors, who are the key to success. The second factor for how occupational therapy will thrive is to understand that every step you take in training, awareness, hospital work, and community work, you are making history. You are changing people's understanding of recovery. You are changing people's understanding of what is possible if you have an illness or disability. When the population understands that occupational therapy can help them achieve what they need to do, what they want to do, and what they must do, you will get also population support. When a population demands OT, and when they come to rehabilitation and they expect a multidisciplinary team of OT, PT, ST, doctors, nurses, then you know that OT will thrive. To help start this journey, you also have a major achievement. You have the article on the 24th of May from the Prime Minister Office that sets the long-term vision. And in that article, it says occupational therapy. It says ICF. It says rehabilitation. It says community-based rehabilitation. So already you have the vision. And if you have the vision from the top and the demand from the bottom, OT will thrive. The only challenge that you have at the moment is your workforce challenge. You have too few. But I see the next 5-10 years as a time of transition. You have the pioneers, the Fantastic Five, who are leading university level education, and they are high quality, dedicated teachers. And they are also able to do research. You will have more bachelor level graduates, and this is good. The challenge for Vietnam is to retain them. You do not want them to qualify, then go overseas to work. Therefore, it is essential that the hospital management, the university management, the rehabilitation doctors, and the teams give them good jobs. You will retain people if they have good jobs where they are happy to work. If you have bachelor graduates where they are only using 10% of their knowledge and skill, you will not retain them. So your leadership needs to be in helping them have good jobs so they will stay. The other thing is to think about how you will manage the bachelor degree therapists and the ones that are the short course, because the short course have a different approach, a different perspective. And we see the next 10 years, it's a time of transition. Of course, you have short course now because you have your demand is too big. But over time, we hope that you will have more bachelor graduates. So this is my response to your workforce question and to the question about thriving. It is vision, it is walking far, not fast, and it is retaining your well-trained OTs in the country. Would anybody like to talk about AI and OT? Come to the front. Thank you for your question.
I'll talk to regarding the question on AI maybe little later. I'll just furthering to what Anne mentioned. And this is the experimentation that we do, as far as the professional thriving is concerned. Just to give you a quick example, I'm the supervisor for a program called MOT in hand and musculoskeletal conditions. Our program started in the year 2002. For 3 years, I had students. After that, for next 3 years, I never had any student. So the vice chancellor, I was then the head of the department as well. The vice chancellor, he called me and he asked me that, where are your students? Okay, how are you head of the department and you don't have a student under you? So there is a big question as per your credentials and your credibility is concerned. Okay, from the university to my department, it is a 5 minutes walk. And probably that was my life's longest walk. Okay, when the vice chancellor, raised his finger on me. It's a private organization. Every student counts. So when I was walking and I was thinking that why am I not having students? Okay, now it's our job in our university, it's my job to get my students. So that was a day, and today is a day when this year admissions, we had to stop students. They were cancelled, they are on waiting list. So what happened from then and now? Okay, so this is when we start selling problems. The art of selling problem, the art of selling occupational therapy, trying to know that what is it, what are the lapses that exist, a very acute sense of analyzing this. These are very, very important. So to cut the story short, it is very important that OTs who are studying here, they have to be trained to analyze the loopholes that exist in the market, into the system. Okay, and those things should be inculcated or in the form of discussing, that has to be incorporated in the system. That's number one. Number two is when you see a patient, typically, you are telling the patient that, you have to come for services. And the patient says, no, I'm fine. I don't have to come. Right? So it is very important that we sell the problem to them. See, in occupational therapy, what happens is when we are asking a patient, what are your problems? Okay. Now, this question in the entire health sector, nobody asks this question. When they are going to a doctor, they are basically asking that, okay, when does your fever rise? When does your fever come? When does your stomach ache? They are used to hearing these kind of questions. Nobody ever asks them, can you eat? So suddenly when you ask the patient that, can you eat? They are quite confused. Okay, now that refining of that question is the key. Because when you are asking a confusing question, they obviously will get confused because they are hearing that question for the first time. So as an occupational therapist, it is very important that how you refine these questions. Okay, and that will help to, generate the demand. And when the demand is generated, our patients only will fight for you. We do it. I'm not telling this thing. Okay, the patients will literally force the doctor that you better, prescribe us occupational therapy. So this is a kind of an ecosystem that we have to create. And there is nothing wrong in it. It is the patient ultimately needs that service. It is just that they are quite disillusioned. They do not know because they have never faced that kind of a question. Right? So this is, in continuation to, another perspective of what she said. And regarding the AI, if you see AI, it thrives on algorithms. Okay, so you're talking about medical science. Yes, there are many, decision-making processes that are getting involved, which are AI-based. So a physician need not make so much of decision. It is the system will generate many a decision, but they're all based on algorithms. Algorithms means there has to be certain consistency in which the data are being generated. Like say, for example, there's a Colles fracture. Across the world, okay, across the spectrum of orthopedic surgeons, Colles fracture will be managed in more or less 2-3 ways only. Okay, the diagnosis has a particular pattern. So it is much easy to develop algorithms there. In occupational therapy, it is not like that. If a patient says that today I want to eat, after 15 days, he may not say that he wants to eat. He'll say, I want to write. The variability in occupational therapy is so enormous, okay, that to create algorithms will be really difficult. So at the moment, the way things are, AI may not be something that will concern the therapist. The therapist still will have to use their ingenuity, okay, their acute sense of judgment. So they have to be able to do that. So this is my take on your questions, first and the third. Thank you. I hope that. Thank you.
Ok, em sẽ nói anh thì em chạy về. Ok, xin mời người bạn.
Next question.
Em xin chào toàn thể hội nghị.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Em là Trang ạ.
I'm Trang.
Sinh viên hoạt động
I'm an occupational therapy student, and currently I'm learning at the Hồng Bàng International University.
Em đến đây tham dự với tư cách là một sinh viên.
And I'm joining the program as an OT student.
Em có một câu hỏi đặt
I have a question for the network leader. So this morning, I had the chance to hear the introduction of OT Vietnam network. And in this afternoon, I heard another project relating to awareness raising of teachers in Sóc Trăng and Thap province. So I have a question for the leaderboard of the OT Vietnam OT network. So in the future plan, do you have any trajectory to improve the awareness of this profession in Vietnam? And the reason why I ask this question is because in order to develop occupational therapy in Vietnam, I think the first issue is the awareness change. Everybody must know about occupational therapy. Then after knowing, they will look for OT, right? Occupational therapist. And if nobody knows, nobody looks for them. And I think about that for myself. If that demand does not exist, then I'm going to be unemployed after graduation. So that's my questions for the leaderboard of Vietnam OT Network. Thank you very much for the question. Like I shared with you in the presentation this morning, we are very fortunate because the current awareness of occupational therapy has been improved since leadership level, like leaders from the Ministry of Health, leaders from the hospitals, they have already changed the way that they look at the profession. So the next step would be about how to disseminate the information, more marketing for the profession. So even I myself, in the period where I took Dr. Sovan around Vietnam and to think about the development plan to disseminate the information of OT in Vietnam, we had come up with an idea, which is we will use social media as a channel. We provide specific intervention for some case studies, and we share the achievements from those case studies to the social network channels. That's another way. That's one way for us to promote the awareness of the profession. And the next part will be about study or research activities. And we are fortunate to have the opportunity, me, myself, Dr. Dak, Ms. Trump, and Dr. Hoa. We had the opportunity to travel to Australia, and we attended a 6-day training in Australia. And we had the chance to work with the OT team in Australia. During the training, we were instructed of the steps, how to develop a complete plan or criteria for occupational therapy so that we can step by step establish a professional association for occupational therapy. And we feel so fortunate to have that opportunity. And we continue the work by assigning the tasks to our members. And that's my sharing. And I think Ms. Trump now will have a few comments about that. Thank Mr. Duong, and thanks Ms. Trang for your question. I'd like to share with you some of the journeys that everybody who work in occupational therapy and relevant stakeholders have worked on over the past time. We know that occupational therapy did exist in the past, but it didn't develop much. And given that situation, other organizations like MCNV, HI, USAID, and Ho Chi Minh UMP have already put more and more efforts to disseminate information of this profession, so more and more people will know about this profession. However, initially, our efforts was quite humble. And in order to introduce more information of this profession to more remote and rural areas, we developed the projects like the CBR program to promote for the profession. However, to promote and to disseminate the information of the profession, we consider that is not the one single person responsibility. And hopefully through the event today, all of you here who attend the event can share more information about this profession to other people, community, and public out there, so that more people will know about this profession. And through the event today, I've seen a lot of conversations, communication, and information exchange, contact exchange among the participants. And thank you very much for your question. And I hope that in the future, you can join our follow-up events to share more about the events and the professions.
I'd like to add in a little bit to that answer, because this topic is pretty much the key priority for the whole network in Vietnam. We all worry actually, and we all are very passionate about advocating for OT in Vietnam. So there's already certain level of awareness at different levels in our healthcare system, all the way from the government to the local authorities and departments. And as a university student, we understand that university always focus on learning outcomes, right, and employability of the students. So, for example, the placement, the project that you heard from two of our students about what they did in Thap, in Trang. So they now have experience working with community, working in very specific tasks like raising awareness, skills transfer, and educating teachers. And we also need to make sure that OTs get to protect their rights and get to practice, and also practice ethically. We want only certified OTs to practice, so to protect the rights of the patients as well. And that's the role of the network. We advocate for OT, and we also advocate for ethical practice of OT, for criteria and standards. And we're working toward accreditation of our training programs as well. We will continue to work with WFOT to bringing the standards to get our programs approved and accredited, so that our students, after they graduate, they can even further their studies abroad. I think by the end of next year, we will have some of the good, first good news about our accreditation journey with WFOT. So thank you for the question. And that's my sharing about the plans going forward of the OT network in Vietnam. Thank you. Let's give time for other questions. I think we have time for only 1 to 2 questions.
Thanks a lot. I would like to say, first of all, thanks a lot for inviting us, and it's really great, exciting, interesting event for the future of OT professions. I'm really happy to see all the presentation, inspiring presentation of the OT students and the presentation of experts from WFOT. I have one comment and one question. The comment, it was Mr. Tuan, he shared that there is a website created for OT network in Vietnam. It will be great to share all the resources shared by the experts with all the network of OT professionals. My question is to the students who worked on the falls prevention, and also to Professor Lynette Mackenzie, because you are expert in this domain. I know that Professor Lynette Mackenzie developed assessment tool, production of falls, and perhaps it will be really useful if the students didn't use it yet. I have a question related to like, I know in Vietnam, like in other countries, patients have sometimes difficulties to reach the rehabilitation center because, for example, for elderly people who had fall down many times, the families may bring him once, perhaps twice. After that, there will be difficulties for him to reach rehabilitation center, and he will end up by neglecting the not doing any activities anymore because he's afraid of falls. And I saw a lot of cases like this. They end up by on long complication by limitation in movement and depression, isolating from other family members. And for financial human resources, the patients will not, the beneficiary or the elderly people will not be able to reach the rehabilitation center or to continue connecting with his rehabilitation. So do you have any recommendation for the professionals to be able to accompany, I don't know how to say it, we can say it in English or not, his patients to deliver online rehabilitation, for example, because I know for PT they're using telerehabilitation, but is it developed for OT professionals to use telerehabilitation for prevention of falls?
Thank you, không biết là các em sinh viên có nghe được câu hỏi của, nhưng mà chắc là để giáo sư trả lời trước đấy.
I wonder if, okay, may you answer the question?
Thank you for your question. And it is a huge issue. It's an issue everywhere around the world for older people to be able to feel confident in their homes. We know that that's a problem, and we know that fear of falls is a massive problem. So I don't have an easy answer, you know, just switch on your computer and off you go. That's not going to happen. Telehealth still needs to be offered by a therapist to a client. I think there's a danger with putting too much online that isn't supervised in any way, because that could be as dangerous, I think, as not having any service at all. But there are some things that are available online. So the home falls and accident screening tool that I've developed is available online in English and Chinese, but not in Vietnamese yet. We've just got the hard copy Vietnamese version that a lot of students have been working on with me this week. So what I'm trying to do is make sure that that tool, first of all, works in Vietnamese homes, and secondly, works reliably so that whoever uses it is likely to get a similar result. So there's a bit of work that needs to be done before that's going to be freely available. And then perhaps we could look at putting that online in some format as well, so that older people with access to a computer or a smartphone could work through, you know, an older person's version. But I think, again, we've got to be a bit careful about how we do those things. One of the most successful things that has happened in Australia, which is similar to your program, is called a Stepping On program. And that is a group program with about 8 to 10 people, so similar in size to yours. And it runs for 8 weeks. And we've done some balance things with older people last week. So it includes all of those sorts of things. But of course, it will involve somebody traveling somewhere to participate in a group program. So that can be a barrier for a lot of older people who don't have the resources to be able to travel, or people who may live in a more remote area. So I take your question and I say, yes, I agree. It's very difficult. And I think that's one of the gaps that you probably referred to in your question, is that with more and more occupational therapists and physiotherapists and other people interested in falls prevention in the community, that would enable more and more people to have access to those services. So maybe we have to allow those services to develop more and be more relevant to older people in Vietnam. I mean, I can come and drop an Australian thing on you all, but I don't think it will work. So it's important that the impetus comes from all of you, knowing a bit more about what's important for older people in Vietnam. But you guys did a great job. I was very impressed with that. And I just have to say, in answer to your question, I wanted to say a bit more about what made OT thrive. And I think a lot of it is having a vision for what occupational therapy can do. I think that's half of it, is that you have a vision and that you have a group of young people coming through that also have a vision. And what I've seen today is been fabulous. So I think the students deserve a round of applause for all that they're doing, as well as the fabulous five, of course. But, you know, that is basically where the future of the profession is going to be. So thank you. I don't know if I answered your question, did I? There we go. No.
Samantha, are you ready? Okay. Em có muốn có câu trả lời không?
Do you want to add to the answer or?
Xin mời bạn ở dưới kia.
Yes,
Chúng ta sẽ dành nốt
in the
câu
back,
hỏi.
please.
Okay, mời em.
Maybe the last question we can take for the day.
Vâng, em cảm ơn ạ.
Thank you.
Thì em xin tự giới thiệu trước thì em
Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Linh Lan. I'm I'm from the first OT cohort in Vietnam, and now I'm in a community project to support people with disabilities. I want to ask a question to Professor Chauvin Saha. I was so excited when I listened to your presentations about the splints and the indigenous assisting tools. When I do my community work, and I've met so many patients with those needs, and your work is about making those assistant tools affordable and accessible for those patients. People I work with live in the deep rural of Vietnam. They will not have the financial conditions to be able to afford expensive interventions, and you've been very creative, very innovative to develop those tools, those custom-made splints for patients. So I want to know more about your experience with R&D, the resources that it takes. And I know that the context in India and in Vietnam can be different, but can you share a little bit about your sourcing, your procurement experience? You know, how and where do you source for affordable raw materials to make those tools? Because custom-made tools can be very expensive. It will be difficult for us. Can you elaborate a little more from your experience? How do you make the whole thing work?
Yeah, thank you. It has a simple answer and a complex answer too. Now, yes, finance definitely is a concern. But having said that, you'll be surprised. I have patients who are beggars also. Okay, so they collect money on the street and then they avail services. Okay, so, you know, it is in continuation to the discussions that I was having. Lot depends on how you have driven the message, how powerful it has been. Okay, because one thing is very fundamental to human existence, and that is nobody on the surface of this earth wants to live with a problem. This is very fundamental to human existence. Okay, so they will do, you know, they will try all their means to get resources available that will be required for you. Yes, we are here not for a killing. Okay, it is not that. We also have a heart with which we serve, right? So it is not that we are going to rob him of all his resources. What we are expecting from them is that, because your organization, you are not going to make it out of your own pocket. Your organization is going to fund it. So it can be in our hospital also, there are a lot of variability. Okay, that much of elbow space is given to us by the organization. But what the organization says is, you cannot give things free. So if the cost is 1 rupee, please recover that 1 rupee. And if somebody can afford, then you can have a higher margin. So that, elbow space is given to us. So that is one thing. Of course, it is not a very straightforward answer to your problem. And the next part is the resources. Now, yes, we have to hunt for what are the, amenable resources that exist in your environment. Okay, so that hunting has to be done, because it is never sustainable that if you have to get resources from elsewhere and not your, environment, then we can't sustain it over a longer period of time. So we need to come up with ingenious ways by which you are going to adapt things within your, range. Okay, so what I do is, from my personal experience, and this offer goes out to you as well and to your group of friends, I do this for OTs across the world. Okay, where I enable them to hunt resources at their place. Okay, I enter into discussions and we try to find out resources that we can make use of, which is available in their environment. So if you come across such a situation where you have a patient and you're not able to, as you're working in the community, you have a patient right in front of you, let us give it a try. Okay, so we can interact over the WhatsApp. I do get, videos, footages from across the world where we enter into discussions. So that could be one of this thing, but the answer is not a very short answer, which is not possible. But these are the various midways that we can work out. Yeah. Does that help? Thank you.
Tôi biết là sẽ còn rất nhiều câu hỏi.
I know maybe there are still many other questions from the audience here, but in the constraint of time, some of our delegates had to catch their 7 p.m. flight. Vice Rector, Professor Dat, with your permission, we would like to wrap up the Q&A and discussion session here. Please contact the organizers of the conference or get the contact of the speakers so that you can keep in touch and send them your questions. I'd like to hand it back to the organizer to close our program. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much to our speakers, to our presidium and the audience who participated in the Q&A session. And now we're at the end of the program, and to pay tribute and to recognize our distinguished guests and our keynote speakers, we'd like to invite Ms. Samantha Shan, Professor Dr. Lynette Mackenzie, and Professor Shovan Saha to come on stage, please. And Professor Ann Kusick as well.
Vâng, kính thưa quý vị và cảm ơn các báo cáo.
Ladies and gentlemen, to express our gratitude to the international experts, to our international speakers who have come a long way to Vietnam. We'd like to present to them our tokens of appreciations and a bouquet of flowers to thank them for their contribution to our program.
Vâng, xin trân trọng cảm ơn Phó Giáo sư Tiến sĩ Ngô Quốc Đạt. Và xin
Thank
trân trọng
you,
cảm
Professor Dr. Ngô Quốc Đạt. And thank you, Dr. Cẩm Vân. And thank you so much to our international speakers.
Và để cảm ơn các báo cáo viên trong nước đã dành thời gian tham dự. Sau đây chúng
We also would like to acknowledge our Vietnamese speakers for taking their time to join us and share with us their experience and their OT initiatives in Vietnam. We welcome to the stage all of our Vietnamese speakers since the morning. BSc OT Nguyễn Phú Sĩ, MSc Nguyễn Khắc Tuấn, BSc Hồ Lê Trung, Miss Bình, Lan Duy, and you, our OT students. We'd like to have Dr. Phạm Dũng, Country Director of MC Envy, and Ms. Lê Hà Vân, representing USAID, to present the organizers' token of appreciation to the Vietnamese speakers.
Vâng, xin trân trọng cảm ơn ông Phạm Dũng, giám đốc quốc gia.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Phạm Dũng and Ms. Lê Hà Vân.
Cũng như các báo cáo viên trong nước. Kính thưa quý vị, tiếp theo chương trình thì chúng tôi xin trân trọng kính mời
Ladies and gentlemen,
bà Samantha Trang sẽ có đôi lời phát biểu.
we would like to have Ms. Samantha Chan back on stage for her closing remarks, please.
Nice to be in touch. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you to everybody that is still here, both in person and online. And thank you to everybody that has joined us today for this very momentous occasion. I want to thank all of the donors and the stakeholders. Yeah. We've heard so much about occupational therapy and the development of occupational therapy here in Vietnam. But without the support of the PRMs, without the support of all the other rehabilitation professionals, we couldn't do this. So thank you. It's so important that we work together and build that team together. And I really do thank you for your support with all of that. I just need to speak a little bit personally as well. Yeah, it's a great privilege to be the president of the World Federation of Occupational Therapists, but you always get these grand introductions and you get here, there, and wherever. And I just want to sort of say that, you know, I am an occupational therapist and I'm very proud to be an occupational therapist. And when I'm not doing all of this, which I love, I still practice as an occupational therapist. I still see patients and clients. So I wanted to thank the speakers today, not just for contributing to the conference program, but also to thank from my heart to contributing to my own professional development. I have learned so much from all of you. not just the international speakers, but I have learned so much from the occupational therapists in Vietnam and also the students. So thank you for making changes in the way that I will go away from this conference. We have a huge privilege as occupational therapists to be part of people's, families, and communities' lives, often at stages of their lives when they are very vulnerable. And I have been encouraged today by the compassion and the empathy that is coming out of occupational therapy here in Vietnam. I knew you were making a difference, but I know that you will go on and make a huge difference. Back in 2021, when I was still quite new as president, you invited me online to one of your conferences. And that year's World OT Day theme was Belong, Be You. Now you do belong to an international family of occupational therapists. Your position in that family is very strong. But I also challenged you to be you, to listen and learn from your international community, but to have the confidence and the respect for the way that you see, interpret, and develop occupational therapy. And I feel very, very positive after today that you took that message and you are doing that every single day of the year. So thank you, and please continue to be you. There's been a lot of talk about advocacy and promoting occupational therapy. WFOT continues to work with you every step of the way. It's not been mentioned, but I will mention it. On Friday, we have a very important meeting with the Vice Prime Minister. So that's an example of WFOT supporting you at that highest level. But you, all of you in this room, are the biggest advocates for occupational therapy. So thank you, and I look forward to continuing the journey with you. My last thank you is to the volunteers today, but a huge thank you for the Congress Organising Committee. And I think we should give them a huge round of applause. This has been my first visit to Vietnam, but I know it won't be my last. So thank you for your kindness, your hospitality, and have safe journeys home. Thank you.
Xin trân trọng cảm ơn bà Samantha Trang đã có những chia sẻ của mình.
Thank Madam Samantha Chan for your sharing. Ladies and gentlemen, after a one-day conference with many new updates on occupational therapy field from international and national reporters, to continue, I'd like to invite Dr. Ngô Quốc Đạt, Vice Rector of Ho Chi Minh UMP, for closing remark.
Các quý vị đại biểu còn tham dự tới
The honor of the delegates who still retain with us until now. It's a privilege for me to start the conference in the opening remark and now the closing remark.
So personally, in my role, I apologize. I did not have time to sit with you throughout the conference. I pop in and out a little bit, but for the parts that I was here, I have had a lot of self-reflection. I learned a lot. I wanted to participate in the discussion just now, but in the interest of time, I gave time to more of the questions from the audience. So also allow me to take this opportunity in my closing remark to stress the importance of going together. Let's go together. By going together, we can go far. We can go strongly. We can go more sustainably. I also want to thank the two interpreters of our conference today They have helped a lot and they've done an excellent job. I thank all two of them for that. So let's go together, and going together really matters. It helps us make a difference. And going together means that we need the involvement of the higher leadership. Our government officers from Ministry of Education and Training is still here with us today, still here until this hour, and they help a lot. And we really need their support to build these training programs in Vietnam. And such a privilege for us to have WFOT, the president herself, came to Vietnam for our conference. So from the perspective of an educational institution of the University of Medicine and Pharmacy, I'm feeling very optimistic. We have the young faces here. We have such passionate young OTs and OT students, so driven. So as a message from the university, I would like to convey a little message to WFOT, the president herself, to our sponsors, to the experts. We appreciate your continuous support. We hope that we will continue to receive your support. And with our own efforts, with our own determination and commitment, the next time you deliver a presentation about WFOT, we want to see Vietnam as the 108th country member, official member of WFOT. And as vice director of UMP, we also hope that our graduates will be counted in your slides as certified OTs in the world. Even though Vietnam will only contribute maybe a small number of graduates of OTs every year, we want to be a part of the international community of OTs. One more thing I want to add is that, with tremendous appreciation for your support, I want to make a commitment as UMP here in Ho Chi Minh City. We are supporting fully the development and the thriving of the rehab department and the OT programs here. Once again, thank you so much to the professors, to honored speakers, sponsors, to each and every one of you in the audience. Thank you for coming to the University of Medicine and Pharmacy for our Occupational Therapy Conference 2023. Let's go together. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Dr. Ngô Quất Đạt, Vice Rector of University of Medicine and Pharmacy, Ho Chi Minh City. Our program has finally come to its close. This is an important milestone, a historic day for us as we look forward into further development of occupational therapy in Vietnam. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.